She watched him cook in silence. But the storm outside wasn't the only thing brewing that night. The cabin in the rain the storm had been building all afternoon. Maya Chen pulled her car to the side of the mountain road, hands shaking, rain hammering the windshield so hard she could barely see 2 feet in front of her. Her GPS had died somewhere back near mile marker 42. Her phone battery was at 3%, and the heel of her left boot had snapped clean off when she'd stepped out to check her tire 20 minutes ago. This was not how a weekend getaway was supposed to go. She was 31 years old, a senior marketing director at a firm in Seattle, and she had planned this solo retreat to the mountains with the same precision she brought to every campaign. Hotel booked, route mapped, emergency contacts notified. What she had not planned for was a flash flood closing the main highway, a detour that led her deeper into pine forests she didn't recognize, and a storm that seemed personally offended by her presence. When she saw the light through the trees, warm, amber, unmistakably human, she didn't hesitate. She grabbed her bag, stepped out into the downpour, and ran toward it. The knock on his door was unexpected. Ethan Wolfe was standing at the stove, wooden spoon in hand, a cast-iron skillet spitting and sizzling in front of him. Garlic, mushrooms, a little white wine. His daughter Sophie was upstairs asleep, finally. After 3 bedtime stories and 2 glasses of water, and 1 very serious conversation about whether wolves were actually afraid of thunder. He wasn't expecting anyone. He never was, out here. The cabin had been his grandfather's. Ethan had inherited it 5 years ago. Around the same time everything else in his life had quietly fallen apart. He'd taken Sophie, then barely 2 years old, and driven north until the city noise faded into pine trees and silence. He'd fixed the roof, replaced the windows, built a proper kitchen counter from reclaimed barnwood. He'd learned to cook because frozen dinners felt like giving up. He opened the door. The woman standing on his porch was completely soaked, dark hair plastered to her face, mascara tracing faint lines down her cheeks, 1 boot heel noticeably shorter than the other. She was holding a designer bag over her head like a shield against the rain, which had done absolutely nothing to help. "I'm so sorry," she said immediately. I'm not dangerous, I promise. My GPS died and the road back there is flooded and my phone is about to die and I just—" "Come in," Ethan said. She blinked. "You don't even know me." "You're standing in a thunderstorm with a broken shoe," he said. "Come in." Maya had expected awkward. She had expected to feel like an intrusion, which she was. What she hadn't expected was the smell. Garlic and herbs and something warm and buttery floating through a cabin that looked like it had been styled by someone who actually understood what cozy meant. Not the Instagram version of cozy. The real kind. Worn leather on the chairs, bookshelves stuffed with actual books, a copper pot hanging above the stove, firewood stacked neat beside the door. And the man cooking. He handed her a towel without ceremony, pointed her toward the bathroom, down the hall. Told her there were spare clothes in the hall closet. His sister visited sometimes. And that dinner would be ready in about 10 minutes if she was hungry. She stood in his bathroom and stared at herself in the mirror. What is happening right now? His name was Ethan. She learned that over dinner. He didn't ask her many questions, which she appreciated. He set a second plate at the wooden table without making a production of it, poured 2 glasses of water, sat across from her and ate like a man who was comfortable with silence, which Maya had noticed was increasingly rare. "You live here alone?" she asked. "With my daughter," he said. "Sophie, she's 6. Already asleep or she'd have 100 questions for you." Maya smiled. "How long have you been up here?" 5 years, more or less. That's a long time to be away from—" She caught herself. "Sorry, I don't mean to pry." "From the city?" He tilted his head slightly. "It's fine. The short version is that my wife left when Sophie was 18 months old. I needed somewhere that felt like it made sense. This did." Maya didn't say "I'm sorry" because she could tell by the way he said it, steady, not performing, that he didn't want that. He'd made peace with it, or at least a working arrangement with it. "Does it still make sense?" she asked instead. He looked at her for a moment. "Most days." The storm didn't let up. By 9 o'clock it was clear that the road she'd come in on was completely washed out. She checked the local alerts on the Wi-Fi he'd given her, sitting at his kitchen counter while he washed the dishes. The nearest passable route was 30 miles south, and would take her a full hour in clear weather, let alone this. There's a guest room, Ethan said, not looking up from the sink. You can take it, I'll sleep down here. I can't do that.
You can, he said simply.
It has a door that locks. I'm not going to be weird about it. She laughed before she could stop herself. The sound surprised her. She hadn't laughed easily in a long time, not since the relationship she'd ended 8 months ago, the one that had made her believe she was too much and not enough at the same time. She'd been careful since then, deliberate, buttoned up in all the ways she knew how to be. Okay, she said. Thank you. She found him later on the porch after midnight. She hadn't been able to sleep. The storm was quieter now, dropping down to a low, steady rain, and something about the sound against the tin roof was almost hypnotic, but not quite enough. She'd pulled on borrowed socks and a flannel she'd found folded on the chair and padded out toward the sound of the rain, and there he was. He was sitting in a wooden chair, a mug in his hand, watching the rain fall through the dark tree line. He didn't seem startled by her. Couldn't sleep? He asked. The rain, she said. It's too pretty to ignore. He tilted his head toward the chair beside him. They sat together for a while without talking. The forest breathed around them, wet and green and alive. Lightning flickered somewhere far to the north, too distant for thunder. Can I ask you something? Maya said eventually. Sure. Do you ever feel like you built this whole life? She said slowly. And it's a good life, a genuinely good life, but some part of you is still waiting for it to actually start. Ethan was quiet for a moment. The rain filled the silence. Yeah, he said. I know that feeling. She looked at him. He was looking at the trees. Sophie helps, he said. She's the most real thing I've got, but there are nights. He stopped, turned his mug in his hands. There are nights where the cabin gets very quiet. Maya understood that. She lived in a city of 800,000 people, and she understood that kind of quiet. I've been so focused on being careful, she said, since my last relationship, like I've been driving with the parking brake on. Ethan finally turned to look at her. The amber light from inside caught the side of his face, and Maya was aware, very suddenly, of how completely still he was. Not distant, not cold, but still in the way that certain people are still, like they have enough inside themselves that they don't need to fill every space with noise. What happened? He asked. He wanted me smaller, she said. Quieter, less ambitious. He never said it directly, but I felt it. And the worst part is, I almost listened. I almost became that. Ethan said nothing for a moment. Then, that would have been a waste. It was such a plain thing to say, no performance behind it. Maya felt something loosen in her chest that she hadn't realized was tied. She left in the morning. The road had cleared enough by 7 a.m., and her phone was charged, and there was a life waiting for her. A presentation on Monday, an inbox with 400 unread emails, an apartment in Seattle she'd made very clean and very organized and very much hers. Sophie was awake by then. She was small and serious with Ethan's same dark eyes, and she stood in the doorway in unicorn pajamas and stared at Maya with open, unashamed curiosity. Are you a princess? Sophie asked. No, Maya said, smiling. Just a person who got lost. Dad says getting lost is how you find stuff, Sophie said solemnly. Maya glanced at Ethan, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. She's 6, he said. She repeats everything. It's good advice, Maya said. She shook his hand at the door, which felt absurd after everything, but also exactly right, and he held it for just a half-second longer than a handshake required, and then she walked to her car. She was at the end of the gravel drive when she heard the door open again. Maya. She turned. Ethan stood in the doorway, one hand on the frame, Sophie pressed against his leg. There's a farmer's market in town, he said. Second Saturday of the month. Sophie and I go every time. If you're ever back up this way. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Maya looked at him for a long moment, this quiet man with his cast iron pan and his reclaimed wood counter and his daughter who believed in borrowed wisdom. Second Saturday, she repeated. He nodded. She got in her car. She drove down the mountain with the windows cracked, the air smelling like pine and wet earth and rain-washed morning, And somewhere around mile marker 37, she realized she was smiling. She didn't try to stop it. 3 weeks later, on the second Saturday of the month, a familiar car appeared in the gravel lot outside the Cedar Ridge Farmers Market. Ethan saw it from the honey stall. Sophie was already pulling his hand, pointing at something, but he wasn't looking at what she was pointing at. He was looking at the woman walking through the crowd, unhurried now, boots firmly on, carrying nothing over her head. She saw him at the same moment, and just like that, the waiting was over,